Welcome to another episode of Courageous Me. And I'm really excited because our guest today, I don't know anything about her other than a couple of email exchanges, which, by the way, when Angela and it's through someone that we both know that we've come into each other's worlds. She sent me an email asking me all these questions around how she can prepare for the podcast, but how she can prepare in a way that's also going to benefit me and the audience that are listening in. That was just remarkable in itself because I haven't had anyone ask me or have the thought go into the preparation like you did. So I'm really, really excited to be getting to know you. And while I get to know you, everyone else will as well. So we've got Angela Metri, who is the founder of a business called Spread.co. And Angela, you're going to have to tell us what that is. Before we get to know a bit more about you, though, can you share what excites you to have a conversation with me today about courage?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Kim. It's so nice to meet you and your beautiful audience. Earlier this month, I was fired up to write a piece about courage being the juice we need in Australia, and I discovered your podcast, and the timing was just amazing because I thought we need to find a community who is already curious about courage. So maybe some of your audience has already done something really hard or they want to do something really hard. Either way, I've been there, and it's so nice to be in this community.
Oh yeah, well you've actually went onto your site and saw you do write about courage and bravery and all of that. So that you and I were meant to be connected. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll learn all about that. So could you just very briefly give us a snippet into who is Angela Metri and what do you do? And then we'll get into finding out about where courage has played out in your life.
Amazing. I'm Angela. I'm the founder of Spread.co, and we deliver our members their favourite whole foods on repeat, direct from farm. And you'll see as we speak which I didn't recognise before I was preparing for this, but how much courage and the desire for something new plays a part in how Spread came about and the way that it's structured. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I love that you said that, how much courage plays a role in that, because also I do know that you were once doing a different type of work and moved. So what was an idea is no longer an idea. It's something you've brought to life. So yes, we can't wait to get into that full story. So on that note, Angela, where is a moment in your life that really stands out for you where you had to reach in and find some courage?
So this one's a really tough one.
Yeah, which one?
Yeah, exactly. But probably the earliest one I can remember that really started the trajectory of acting on courage, which to me is acting despite uncertainty. In my late teens, I had started my law degree and I was desperate to be financially independent. But my dad said I had to work for him. So
What did your dad do?
So he has an electronics manufacturing business, and really exciting for some, I'm sure.
Yes.
He was very passionate about it, but I obviously felt soulless. It had none of my personal loves in there, and I felt soulless, but I really wanted to be a good girl. And so I decided to do the next good girl thing. And I told him, you know what, I'm going to take a job at a Christian bookstore. I've done the interview. They've given me the job. This is my first job ever outside of my dad's work. And he did not like that at all.
So he didn't want you to be a lawyer, but he also didn't want you to work at a Christian bookstore. He only wanted you to work with him.
He wanted me to work with him. So he hadn't quite accepted the fact that I was going to be having a life outside of home.
Yeah.
We'll probably come across this later, but I'm number 2 of 7, and so that probably played a role as well.
I was going to ask, have you got other siblings? If you're an only child, I can understand. It's like, no, my child has to, but you're one of 7. Your second, was the older one a sister or a brother?
My brother, yeah. My older brother.
Okay. Did you want him to go into the business?
He wanted all of us to go into the business.
Oh.
Yeah. He had to go with all of us. Good on him for trying so hard.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you didn't go in? Sorry,
no,
you're back at the store still. Yeah.
We all tried. We definitely all tried. We all stayed there for a little bit, but I think it was clear, like he was the one that was a passionate electronics engineer, and it wasn't for us.
Yeah.
So what I haven't said out loud before this moment is, had I not redefined what a good girl was in that moment, my future might be completely different. And I probably never would have met my husband. I never would have been in this career. There's just so many things that would have been different. And it was the first time I disobeyed him. I said,
How old were
I'm
you
going
when this happened? Can I ask?
I was probably 18, 18 or
Oh,
19
wow.
around.
Okay.
Yeah, so his late teens.
Yes.
I'd up until that point
Yes.
been well within his grasp. So he was very unhappy about that. But I decided, because there was no real reason in my mind that I shouldn't work there, I'd literally ticked all the boxes for him. I was going to take the job. That was probably the first moment I remember going back to my journal and just writing how it felt to make a decision myself for my own life.
Yeah. And how did it feel?
So it's so funny. Courage makes you feel so many things. It makes you feel fear. It makes you feel excitement. It makes you
Yeah.
feel uncertain. But all of those things combined are a good feeling, because you know at the end of that, there's growth.
Oh, absolutely. And you're 18 at the time. And I
Yeah.
love the language you used then when you said to redefine what a good girl meant. Up until that point, what was being a good girl to you?
Doing what I was told, no questions asked.
And told by just your father or your parents, or told by
My
the world?
parents, yes. So I grew up basically in three environments, which was home, church, and school. There was
Yes.
really not much outside of that. And so
Yeah.
it was being told by those three environments.
Yep.
And if I did something outside of that, it wasn't possible. I can't even imagine what that would have been like. So
Oh, wow. So,
yeah, we weren't
yeah.
really encouraged to make our own decisions. So I guess a school kid would somehow feel this to some extent. They can still
Yep.
choose what sports and all of that. But the closest thing I can think of to help people relate is, you go through your whole schooling life, you get told what subjects to choose and that sort of thing. And then in year 12, you're like, okay, go choose your career. What are you going to do for the rest of your life? That's probably the best thing I can do that I can sort of relate to.
Oh, totally. And I relate. I also am your classic good girl and conformed completely to everybody else's wishes, desires, expectations, and the whole lot. Absolutely. And it is hard. You just got onto that, challenging that at an earlier age than I did. So when you're 18, and also just going back there, when you were a little girl growing up, what did you think you wanted to be?
Oh, I wanted to be a fashion designer, actually.
Oh, wow. Tell me
Yeah.
why. What was interesting about that?
So I have to say, I have to preface that with, I also loved hospitality. So I would
Right.
fill, those little cupcake patty tin paper
Yeah,
holders for
yeah, yeah.
cupcakes. What are they called?
Yeah.
I'd fill one with sugar. I'd put salt and pepper on the table, and I'd write up a menu. Mind you, I could not cook at all. I'd put it on the table, wait for mum and dad to come down for breakfast. Be like, guys, I'd put an apron. I'd love to serve you breakfast. What would you like? I
Oh,
loved
wow.
hospitality. I still do to this day. Um, but I also have like such an appreciation for fashion, like art in fashion. And so I wanted to be a fashion designer. And my mum, bless her, would watch Fashion Runway with me. What is it called again? Fashion Runway.
No, yeah, yeah, no idea, but
Yeah,
yep, something, yeah,
well,
yeah,
many
yeah,
many years ago when it actually started, and we loved watching it. But she did kind of tell me it's not as easy as it wasn't as easy back then to get in as it is
mm,
now. In
mm,
terms of it being so much more accessible through social media and that sort of thing.
yeah,
Back then, it was pretty cutthroat. I'm sure it still is.
yes.
And my mom was like, "Are you sure you want to do something that really your background being so conservative, you would find it easy to get into this field?" And um, I think it's in my future still somewhere, but it definitely wouldn't have been easy for me to crack into straight off the bat.
Well, and can I ask how old you are now? So when you say back then, we've got some context.
I'm 35 or turning 35.
35.
Yeah.
Turning 35, yeah, yeah. So this year you'll be 35. Okay, got it.
Right.
So when you're talking back then, you're talking sort of 15, 20 odd years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
Wow. So you've got this desire for fashion design. And it was interesting when you were talking about the cupcakes and that. And when you're a good girl, one of the traits of being a good girl is people pleasing, right? So when your parents would come down, it's like, I wanna please you. Let me make you some breakfast. Like I could feel that coming through. It's like, oh yeah, she's the good girl. So
Yes.
you've got this desire for fashion design. Your dad wants you to get into electronics and engineering, into his business. But you mentioned law. How did that come into it?
So I was good at legal studies in school,
Yes.
and again back then the sort of list that we had to pick from was like medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, engineering, law, and I think teaching. And they were like, this is what you can choose between. And I used to tease my dad to his great disappointment. I can't stand the sight of blood, which is not true, but it's fine. But I just, there's nothing about it that I could possibly imagine myself ever doing. And so
The
I was
real
like, oh,
doctor out.
yeah, exactly. Straight off the list, that
Yeah.
one. But
Out.
I love
Yep.
reading, love reading. And so I was like, well, the only one that's going to sort of get me to do that constantly is law. And I loved my degree, absolutely loved it.
Yep. So you completed your law degree.
I did. I'm not going to lie. I found it so difficult because, firstly, I found it difficult because the people around me were seemed so much smarter. You know, oh, I did a HD, I barely studied, and I was not used to
Yep.
this sort of conversation. I'm sort of like, oh, I had to study really, really hard to get whatever I got, and um, hard work is just part of what you have to do to be in law. So
Yeah.
that made me feel very different. And it was also difficult because, sort of towards the end of my degree, whilst I did my degree and it gave me so many great skills, I
Yeah.
could see that at the end of the degree, the actual career which I had started to work in by this point um, definitely wouldn't match what the actual degree was like. So your degree and the career are like nothing alike, which I'm sure is the same for so many other degrees.
Yep. Yep.
um,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I was scratching and clawing towards the end of it to finish because I was like, what, this means I have to make a really difficult decision if I'm not going to be in the industry.
But that's interesting because you still finished it. Like you still
Yeah,
finished it, even though
yeah,
you knew that the career was not what you wanted. I love that
yeah,
you still, because one thing I know a lot of people that have studied law, even practiced for a while and then have got out. As much as they got out because they didn't, usually it's because they didn't want the lifestyle of a lawyer, or the work or the hours and all of that. But what they said is what they learnt during the degree was invaluable.
that's so true. I could not agree
Yeah.
more with that. But I think I had something to prove. Yeah, well, you'll hear this. I'm sure you know this, like personality. You've seen it before, but had to prove it to myself that I could do it.
Yeah. Well, especially if you've been a good girl. Yeah. It's like good girls
Exactly.
don't not finish anything. You started it, you've got to finish it regardless. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
We've got a lot in common here in that respect. Yeah. So what happened then? So you finished it and then what did you do?
So I started. So I looked for. So up until then, I had worked in a class action majority like focused firm,
Yes.
and I grew so much there. Actually, it was quite fun. I loved it, and I wanted a different challenge. And so I found a startup firm. It was very different, and I started to work there, and I loved that as well. And what was really unique about it was because it was a startup environment. I was working with a lot of startup clients and I didn't know startups existed and or were a thing. And the more
Mm.
I learned about them, the more I was like, oh wow, there's a way to get your ideas into the world in a faster way. And
Oh,
I was
what
very
business was
intrigued.
it?
Sorry,
What business was it?
the firm.
The startup, yeah.
Yeah, it was called Legal Vision, or it is
Oh,
called
so
Legal.
still within the legal space.
Correct. Yes,
Oh, wow. And you enjoyed that?
I loved it. Yeah, I met people who I still speak to this day who are amazing humans, and it
Yeah.
was really it was the perfect environment.
Ah, so why didn't you stay?
So, such a good question. There was a part of me that didn't feel honorable, and
Yes.
integrity is probably like really high up there in my value set, very, very
Yeah.
high up there. And even though I felt the environment was right, the team was amazing, the people who I worked with were wonderful, it didn't suit my skill set. And I kept finding myself asking the question, am I really giving everything of myself that I can give in this industry? Or is there more in me that I have to find a different path to give it?
Wow. And so they weren't questioning you. This is you questioning you.
Yeah.
Wow. And yeah, that's really interesting. And that obviously, where did that take you to then?
So around this time, I was questioning so many things, and I decided I'd come into work a couple of hours early and just sit at a cafe and journal. Journaling
Ah,
and self-awareness have been like my best friend since I was a kid.
I'm
And
gathering that when you said that earlier about redefining a good girl, you went straight to your journal. Yep, yep,
yes,
yep.
saving grace. Um, and I'd ask myself so many questions. What was important to me? What did I really have to offer? You know, it's just life's so short. And it made me think, do I have to go in a different direction? And it was around this time that I had sort of discovered this profound love for food.
How old are you about this time?
I was probably 20. Oh, okay. So I discovered my love for food when I met my husband, which is in 2012
Right. Okay. So
or
about
2011. So that was way before that. But the
yes, yeah,
discovery
about
that I
14.
wanted to do it for the rest of my life, that was in 2000 and like 2019 to 2020, probably.
Oh, so 5, 6 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, good.
Before
Again,
that,
just giving you context. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Before the 2020,
Mm.
2019, that era, those few years, or those probably 5 to 6 years, that was when my food journey really took hold, because
Ooh.
that's how I met my husband.
Oh, wow. So the food journey, is this your love for food? Because you said when you were a little girl you loved hospitality. Yeah.
Correct. You got it.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about your food journey. This is interesting.
So I have to bring in the meeting story because I feel like it's going to hit perfectly here. So
Oh, good.
at Coorong,
I love a good meeting story.
full circle moment. What do you know? I was working at Coorong at this Christian bookstore, and
Yes.
someone walked in and handed me a letter, and it ended up being my now husband. So he had written me a letter, and we kept in touch. I'm giving you the condensed version because it took a
Yes.
couple of
Yes.
years for us to actually connect again.
But he gave you a letter, but you didn't know him?
I didn't know him. No,
All
so
right. So it's a
this strange
stranger.
man. Yep, exactly. Yep.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. I love that.
I know. And like later on, he had told me he actually went back home, wrote me the letter, and came back. So he had seen me, went home, wrote the letter, and came back to give it to me. I
Oh,
know
I've got
it's pretty.
goosebumps. Oh my gosh. Oh,
It's
wow.
pretty
And
amazing.
can you, without divulging the nitty gritty details, though, what was the essence of the letter?
Um, I remember my favorite line being something like, "I promise I'm not an escaped prisoner" or something like that. Got good sense of humor.
Oh, I love
But it
it.
was basically like, "I saw you. I'd love to catch up for a coffee sometime."
Oh, so like your classic rom-com kind of sees the
Yep.
girl, there's something going on, right? So, oh, I love this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you stayed
Exactly.
in touch.
So we stayed in touch. I kind of said no to the date. Um, as you can imagine, by this point, I'd had a little bit of a man not wanting to be in my life, and so maybe a couple of years later, I had to join LinkedIn for a work related task.
Yes.
And, you get the feature of you may know this other
Yes.
person. And my email
Yes.
came up on his LinkedIn feed. And he sent me a message to say, random question, but did you work at Coorong, at this Christian bookstore? And I'm like, yeah. Did you used to work there? And then I realized it was this guy that had written me the letter. And I'm like,
Oh
oh,
my God.
my goodness.
Oh my gosh. I have to go back for a second. So when he obviously handed you the letter, so you knew what he looked like in that, but you said no to the date.
Yes.
Did you say no because at this stage you said you weren't interested in dating and all of that, or was it
Yes.
no to him?
No, no to dating.
No to date. Okay, so it had nothing to do with him. It was you just weren't in that headspace. Yep. Okay, got
Correct.
it. Got it.
Yes.
Right.
I then decided, oh yeah, so then he sent me the email and did you used to work there? And I was like, oh yeah, so you're the guy that asked me out after he said, yeah, I'm the guy that asked you out. I'm like, oh no, wow, okay, so this guy's hitting me up again. All right, but for some
He obviously
reason,
liked you.
yeah, for some, I can't,
Yeah.
his memory is impeccable, and I don't know what it was, but I was like, yeah, okay, I'll see you. And it was smooth sailing from there. Touch
Oh,
wood.
you're kidding. So
Yeah.
you went on a date. Where did you go?
So we went on a date. Um, so he realized up until this point, for the first 2 decades of my life, I was a very extremely, for the people who listen on audio, I'm air quoting, fussy eater. I was really fussy. Very limited
What does
diet.
fussy mean?
Okay,
Yeah.
so I would eat like frozen chicken tenders. I was the person who set off the fire alarm when I was making an egg or making bacon. Couldn't cook to save my life. Um, had like chocolate on. I was allowed on one church trip, and I ate chocolate covered almonds the whole time because I could not bear to touch anything there. This is literally my diet. It was just really, really limited.
And was it because you just didn't like that food, didn't like the taste of it? Was it a belief system around it? Like,
I hadn't been
what?
exposed to very much. So for the first couple of
Ah,
decades, I mostly ate my mom's home cooked food, which was I love it. And like outside of that, it was more simple, like just chicken and those frozen tenders or battered fish
yeah.
or very basic sort of whatever you can find in the freezer or that kind of
Yep.
food.
Yep.
But I was definitely not the type to try anything new. So
Ha.
looking back now, I feel like my husband knew I like to be challenged. He took me to a seafood restaurant and
Ooh.
he offered me a bite of his tamaki sushi, which is like the Japanese hand roll.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it
And
was
this
a
is on your
prawn.
first date.
Yeah, I think it's our first official date or
Yes.
second, maybe. And
Yeah.
I'm like, this guy, what is he doing? He's taking me to a seafood restaurant and now he's offering me this weird thing that he knows I would never touch.
Yeah.
But could not like I just couldn't be a wimp. So I
No,
take a
no, you're on a
bite.
date. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm on a date, can't be a wimp. I'm like intrigued as well as to this new thing that's being presented to me, and I take a bite and just the wave of emotion that came over me. I know that sounds so dramatic, but having tried something new, wave number one, that's cool, I did something new. Then number two, oh wow, that was really interesting. Number three, oh, I've grown a little bit, I tried something new and I didn't die. It was
Oh,
magical. And I, after that point, would say it was just like an avalanche snowball. Just you couldn't stop me. I had to discover what else I had been wrong about, and
well,
I
you had
set
all
out.
these years of being a fussy eater. You had to start what most people start when they're like 6 months old. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the
Oh,
point where again I was doing this redefining.
yeah.
What if I'm not a fussy eater? What if there are other things I could like?
What if I'm not a fussy eater? Oh, I love that. Changing that label you've worn for this long. What if that actually wasn't true?
Exactly.
Oh, Angela. Oh my gosh. Oh, keep going. This is fun.
So I had to try and look. So it was really hard, and I really empathize with every one of us that's trying to expand palates or
Mm.
look for good food because it was really hard. I was like, how do I do this? You either have to go to a restaurant to try something good,
Mm.
or you have to search high and low to find simple ingredients that are often grown in the same soil as the carrots that you might get at the supermarket. Not in exactly the same soil, but it's still soil.
Mm.
And I was so intrigued by this. Why was it so hard? And I remember distinctly there was like one year I bought the Donna Hay magazine, and there
Yes.
was this beautiful artwork of French radishes on the front. watermelon radishes on the front. Sorry, not French. And there's this beautiful pink, and I was obsessed with coloured, like I still am. Colourful foods just get me every time. I love them. That you
Which
can
is kind of
find
like fashion design, but in the food space.
exactly, exactly. And like,
Beautiful.
yeah, the colours that you can find in nature, I was just so touched by.
Yeah.
And so I went everywhere. Where you're supposed to find these watermelon radishes? And so I think I contacted the editor of the magazine, and they directed me to a farmer's market. And then I discovered farmers markets. And I think it was like I'm not joking, I think it was like a 12-month journey to find my first watermelon radish in the wild, like in nature. I know, it's crazy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I've never even heard of a watermelon radish, by the way. So, yeah.
It was and it was just so crazy to me that something so simple, which it was like, it's just another radish, was
Mm.
seen as this really, it's a beautiful color. I'll send you a photo after this.
Yeah, you'll
Um,
have to. Yeah.
yeah. Um, that it could be so seen as such this rare, crazy
Mm.
ingredient that should never be graced on the tables of a household kitchen. It was just insane to me. And I wanted to normalize it because all my friends were like asking, where did you get this? Or they'd come over. And the best times I remember were when they'd come over and I would feed them, going back to my love for hospitality, and they would try something that I know they would never try in ordinary circumstances. So I remember my dad tried raw kangaroo, which was so far left field for him. And
Oh,
then
wow. And this was, you instigated this, right? You did this.
I made it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did.
yeah.
Yeah,
So you've learnt to cook as well.
I tried to teach myself something new almost every day. So I'd come home from work and then I would make something based off of whatever I had learned over the weekend. So I was like a sponge. Whatever was around me, I would try to absorb and learn. And I'd write notes when we went to restaurants. And I remember some of them, one of them thought I was a critic, which was so funny because I was like ferociously writing notes on what I'd like to do with this ingredient that I discovered. And the best compliment I'd get was when someone I hadn't expected would come and try something they hadn't expected that they would try, and they liked it. That was by far the best thing. And it's still probably the most satisfying thing to me is when I see someone displaying that moment of courage as well, trying something new and different.
Oh, yeah. But it's, don't you love how versatile courage is? That it can even be something as simple as trying a different food or, you know, when like what you were talking about before about raw kangaroo, to me, like all of a sudden, because of those words in my head, I'm like, nah, 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 not interested. That doesn't fit. But then trying it and your dad loved it. I mean, that takes courage in itself to try and, yeah, take your mind out of the picture and just give it a go. So just going back to all of this being kickstarted by your now husband, I'm assuming you said that all kind of went well. You just carried on and it's, oh, wow, what a beautiful love story.
It was
And
pretty.
how long have you been together now?
So we just celebrated our 12-year wedding anniversary.
Oh, how good. This is the guy that came in with the love note in the shop.
I
This is,
know.
what's that Julia Roberts movie where she's the famous actress and Hugh Grant and I'm just a girl standing, or I'm
Oh,
just a
it's
guy
not
standing in front of a girl.
Pretty Woman, no.
Notting Hill.
Naughty. I'm like, oh, which one?
Yeah, because she was working in a bookstore. Oh,
Oh,
he
no
was working in the book.
way.
No, he worked in the bookstore. She was the movie. Yeah, so
Really?
completely
I have to
different.
watch this.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, because you're younger, right? Yeah, Angela. Oh my God, you've got to watch Notting Hill. So it's Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts, but it's she was a famous actress. He worked in a bookstore, but it's the whole bookstore thing. So
Oh,
you've
so
got that
good.
vibe going on. No wonder, no wonder. And you've got the Julia Roberts hair, so you know, lots of similarities. Okay. So you've now worked out your passion for food. You've removed the label of good girl. You're removing the label of fussy eater. Tell me, because I now know you run a business in the food space, How did all this start? Tell me about that.
So it started off, firstly, that moment of truth when I was like, okay, I know I now want to work in food. I've worked
Yes.
so hard to be financially independent, and now I'm going to go to my husband and he's going to support me while I'm starting this venture. That conversation was one of the hardest days ever. I
Yeah.
till now it
Yeah.
drives so much emotion in me because I remember how much I was putting on the line. Like it's my
Yeah.
marriage, it's my career that I worked so hard and it was really difficult to get to that point. And what if it doesn't work? And there was just so many thoughts running through my mind, but I
Mm.
knew 100% there was no way I could look back when I'm 80 and say I wish I'd done something different.
Oh, I've got all the feels. I've got all the feels. That moment where you've got this career in law, you have now got this desire, and you've had to go and say to your husband, this is what I want to do. When financial independence was something you mentioned that was really important to you. And when you start up a new business, you know that you don't bring money in from day one. And you still did it. That passion of yours to do this must have been so great to
Yes.
move past these kind of fears and do it. What did your husband say?
I should have known. Like, I don't know why I had so much fear.
Yeah.
Um, and that's something that I'm sure we'll talk about. But courage
Yeah.
is like, it's acting despite uncertainty, and
Yeah.
fear is so much bigger. The perception is so much bigger than the reality of what it is, because my
Yeah.
husband was like, of course. And the great thing about that conversation that I've always valued in all of our conversations is there's no like, yeah, you can do it. It's going to be amazing. It's super realistic. It's like, look, amazing. I'm here for you. And whatever way it goes, I'm still here for you.
Oh,
So whatever failures there are, I'm here. Whatever successes, I'm going to celebrate with you.
yeah.
And that gave me the courage and the safety net to
Yeah.
go in gung ho and give it my all. Um, it's funny because after that, I had to think about what model this would take. So if I want to teach people, or if I want to share with people my love of food, what's that going to look like? Well,
Mm.
I knew, number one, it wasn't going to look like a food blog.
Ah, yes.
That just
Yes.
was not my iteration of it. But what else could I do? And
Mm.
so I had to sort of have a think, and I was like, okay, well, maybe a course. And that was a whopping failure.
Oh, so you did give a course a go. You tried to create a course
Correct. So I did
online?
the course, published it,
Yep.
and I think I sold like 10 courses. And there was
Ah.
so much work that had gone into it.
Yeah.
Um, and what was funny was looking back, I know that I'd learned so much, and I actually still use a lot of the content when I'm
Yeah.
showing people a new concept. But I remember thinking, I did not think big enough. This was simply
Mm.
not the biggest expression of what I can do and what I believe the world needs. And
Yeah.
so till today, I didn't, or I actually don't view anything as a failure. It's like
Yeah.
either a stepping stone or it's somewhere you get to reflect on. But
Yes.
either way, it's a stepping stone. It's the stepping
Mm.
stone to the next step. That's it. And that that was the next point of courage. Firstly, the conversation with my husband, knowing what I want, and then having the courage to ask for it. That
Yeah.
is probably what holds so many of us back,
Yeah.
because what if this person doesn't care for me anymore, whether it's your
Yeah.
parent or your child, even your
Mm.
child, you can ask something
Mm.
from them, or your spouse or a friend. But
Mm.
knowing what you want and then asking for it is the
Mm.
first point I find of courage to do something different in your life, and so
Yes.
for so many of us.
Yeah.
And then
Just,
the
can
second,
I just ask, sorry, on that note, I mean, assuming you've met the right man and you've married the right man, obviously he was going to support you and whatever. What and was one of the things going through your mind, and this is always the case when you make the mountain when it was only a molehill, that you thought, like, what if he said, no, I'm not supporting you on this because we need you to be out there earning money and sticking with your career? Had that been a thought, or really in the back of your head, did you know he would support you?
that is such a good question, and I think subconsciously I'd filtered that out when I met him.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
it.
think, yeah, it's exactly what you said, assuming you met the right person.
Yeah, because the right person was always going to support your dreams
Yes.
no matter what. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I cannot say enough about how rigorous I was when I was dating him and he of me. There was no question untouched. We were just like unafraid of all the difficult scenario, not so much hypotheticals that would never happen, but
Yes.
things that really meant a lot to us. I knew whatever career my part actually, in fact, I remember I was looking into editing at one point, like editing, I found that really interesting.
Yes.
And he was sending, this while I was doing my law degree, he
Yeah.
was sending me like things that he'd found on Seek to do with editing. Like he didn't care what I was doing at all. And
Whether you're a lawyer or you were an editor or
it did not matter.
whatever, he just loved you.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I love that. Oh, I love that.
I don't think any of us should settle for anything less
No.
because we only have one life. I was actually saying
Yeah.
to a friend the other day, each of us like has our own autonomy in our own life. And I think if we rely on the other spouse too much to tell us what we can and can't do,
Yeah.
it can very quickly become this seeping out of your own autonomy and agency and your freedom.
Yeah.
And that's when you start to lose courage to act on the things that you really want.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. And so you've had the conversation with him. Sorry, I interrupted. You were doing
Yes.
two things, but I just had to get to that, get to
No,
the
I
answer
love
to
your
that part of
questions.
it.
It's so
Yeah.
good. Had the question. So the conversation with him was the first point of
Yeah.
courage. The second was quitting my job, and they promised me like a position. So they gave me the safety net. Look, if you ever want to come back, we've got a spot here for you. And that was also so amazing. And
Yes.
they were so supportive.
Oh.
And then the next point of courage was the course, launching that. And then the next point of courage was when I had those 10 sales and I was like, okay, this did not work. So I had really good feedback.
Yes.
But I remember going through and reviewing and recognizing, okay, this is not a format for people to really learn. Because what people need is not more courses and recipes.
Yes.
Because if we did, the world's problems would be solved because we have infinity courses and recipes online.
Absolutely.
So the next point of courage, which I think is one we often miss, is like looking internally. What am I willfully ignoring that I need to pay attention to?
Yeah.
And I feel like I still fall short of this a lot because we have so many blind spots. It's like a practice. I don't know about you. It can be so hard to sort of face your own blind spots, and sometimes you have to ask other people. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love though that you've had the course that hasn't gone to plan. But instead of looking at it as, oh, I'm a failure, giving it away and almost saying, okay, I've just got to go back and get a job somewhere, you've gone, okay, well, probably the next step now is let's go inwards. Let's find out what's going on inside and looking there for the answers as opposed to going, oh, I just think that is beautiful. So, so keep going. This is just superb.
So I recognized it was going to need something with huge efforts because the courses were out there, the recipes were out there, the food blogs were out there, and there are so many amazing ones. We didn't need more of that, and I knew that I could not do that.
Yes.
But when I kept looking at what am I good at, what does the world really need, and in fact, what does Australia really need, and then what do I love to do? It was finding really incredible farmers. And when I looked back at what I had been doing over the past few years, I had actually been creating a spreadsheet, and this is going to sound so dorky. I had been documenting thousands of recipe ideas. Note, ideas. I don't actually follow recipes. I call them dish ideas by ingredient on a spreadsheet. And my friends laugh at me because of how much I love spreadsheets. And then I had also been creating a spreadsheet of all of the farms and producers that I had gotten to know over the years. And I think I am up to over 800.
Oh, fruit. Oh my gosh.
And for farmers, yeah.
Yeah. And isn't this interesting though? When you're doing something that's coming from within, you just do it. Like you don't have to think about it. It's not hard work. You're just doing it because there's that internal drive. Yeah. I love that you put it in a spreadsheet. Just before you go on, why don't you follow recipes?
Oh gosh, this is so another conversation. So
Yeah.
I believe strongly that when everyone asks for a recipe, what they're really asking for is confidence.
Ah, okay. Yes, yes.
And so depending on what you want, the recipe is going to give you something different. So I will go to a recipe for a technique or for a food pairing
Mm-hmm.
or for a visual idea of something that looks really good to me or to learn more about a cuisine. But it is rarely ever to follow step by step. I'll give a really good example actually. I tried
Yeah.
a dessert called Halo Halo, which is from the Philippines, and it is quite magical. Something very outside my comfort zone that I wouldn't normally try. Uh, and I fell in love with it. In fact, I think I had it like 2 or 3 nights in a row. I know there's no way I'm going to duplicate that recipe. It's quite nuanced and
Yes.
really, really technical, but I'm
Mm.
still going to track down the recipe from this place and
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and duplicate it. But I'm going to look at the elements of what was in there and I'm going to create something that is something that will give me the gist of what I had and there's still the same level and sense of enjoyment,
Yes.
but it's not going to be a duplicate because I will just disappoint myself.
Oh my gosh. And going back to you redefining a good girl, it's like now you're redefining hello, hello, which is
Yes,
taking a recipe from someone else, going, what are all the bits in there that work for me, that I like the elements, and then doing my version of it.
yes,
Oh, there's such a theme going through your life
yeah,
there,
yeah,
right? Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
You've got the
exactly right.
recipe for confidence. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's gorgeous. So keep going. This is juicy.
So I was like, okay, well, I have to think about what I'm really going to offer here. And at that
Mm.
point, I recognized, okay, well, I've got all of these farmers, I've got all of this really strong way of thinking about how I should feed myself. And so, and I can see that all of my friends and so many people I speak to still struggle 10 minutes before dinner. And I
Ah.
am talking, I speak to people with really big budgets who still want to cook for themselves
Mm,
and they are still finding that they have the problem 10 minutes before dinner. So,
mm.
unless people are employing a private chef 5 to 7 nights a week, this problem does not discriminate on to
Yeah.
anyone, with anyone,
Yeah.
based
And
on
that 10 minutes thing is that, oh, my, what am I going to do? What am I going to
exactly what am
cook
I
or
making.
feed my
Yeah,
family or feed us? Yeah, yeah. Got it. Yep.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. 10 minutes before 5, what do I do? What do I make? And the people like the stress. I have actually sat across from women, Kim. Honestly, Kim, they're like crying in a restaurant across the table from me, because the load on them is enormous.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just talking about food, but
No, no, no. I understand. Yep.
the mental
Yep.
load is
Yeah.
so high.
Yeah.
It becomes hard to
Yeah.
just get through the day.
Yeah.
And I truly can't. That's why it's such a big reason for why I do what I do, because I don't believe it should be this hard. It just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Yep. And when you've got the mental load that's literally, it's at breaking point, and then on top of that, you've got to go, and what do I have for dinner? That's, yeah, yeah, totally. I can see how, and especially having, you gone through law and seen, the career that most people follow. The whole thing's making sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And I also saw that all they want to do is sit. I'm sure you've experienced it. The moment where you're sitting next to your loved ones and enjoying a meal without having it shouldn't be a rare moment.
No.
It shouldn't be so rare. It should
No.
be more often,
Yes.
where you're actually enjoying the meal and not having to worry about, oh, I've got to worry about this tomorrow, and then there's all this cleanup, and then it's just a constant
Yes.
battle.
Yes.
And so that's when I had to find my next point of courage, which was redefining the business model.
Oh, I love this. So it's not in the courses, but the courses have taught you a lesson, and
Yes.
you've had feedback as well, which has now led you to this point. What do I do next?
Yes. And
What
so
what
I
can I
thought,
do?
so I was like, okay, well, I have to make it really simple. And so what I'm going to try is to get people to pay a subscription every month, and I will choose everything for them.
Mm.
And so I designed a flyer. I got a friend to sort of design it nicely for me, and he did that for me. And then I got it printed, and I did flyers. I remember that point was exactly the same point of those ways we talked about earlier
Yes.
of the sum of courage, which is like fear and excitement and
Yeah.
uncertainty, but felt good, was the moment I was dropping those flyers into mailboxes, and not knowing what's going to happen next,
Yeah.
but acting despite it. And I didn't know how I was going to execute, but it was a really incredible experiment because I got a lot of families signing up, and we ended up doing an experiment where they pay a membership, they would put their budget in for the week and then just check out. So it was just type in 100 to 150 bucks maybe.
Yep.
So we had an average spend between $150 and $200 a week.
Yes.
They
And that
would,
was for how many meals?
it was produce only, and then I would give them ideas, no recipes, but ideas of
Ideas,
what
not
to do.
recipes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yep. And then they would get a box every week, and it was based on staples. So I would get them all direct from farm, like good milk, sourdough, eggs, yogurt, seasonal fruit, vegetables, and maybe a treat like some beautiful handmade chocolate or something
Yes.
like that. And
Yes.
then I would deliver that every single week.
Yes. And you chose the project that they didn't choose. Yes.
Correct. So they could put in requests, and we made sure I kept a profile on each household.
Yes.
So I knew what they don't eat, what they don't like, all of those things. And then we would aggregate and deliver every week.
Yes.
And that was an incredible learning experience. I realized how much I loved personalizing boxes for each family.
Yes.
I
Yes.
loved seeing the mental load like drain away every time I spoke to them.
Yeah.
It was so lovely. And I loved seeing the kids come to the door, and one of them would like wear a box and run around, and the other one would be like, oh, let's see what's in there this week. And it was fantastic. The end of that experiment was the logistics broke. I could not, to scale to the next level, we had to then redefine, and that is where we are today. So we're basically redoing the logistics so that we can scale.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next question. So you're sourcing all the produce, you're creating these boxes which are to a degree personalized for desire. When you said we, my question was going to be who's the we? Because I could expect you'd need a lot of manpower. This is not something you can use AI for to a degree. I'm sure there's some way AI can fit in there.
Yes.
But again, that has become the problem. So where do you see that? The changing the logistics to scale it, how's that kind of playing out?
So we're going to do a couple of experiments with it. So I believe in experimenting, as you can probably tell by now.
I can tell, absolutely. Yep.
And those experiments are going to be run off a few theories that we have about, it's mainly me, but the theories that I have around how logistics can work.
Yes.
We'll run a few experiments on those based on a hub theory, which is that people will easily be able to access those aggregated boxes if there's high density, if it's a high density geographical area, because the farmers will often be delivering to a point near there anyway.
Yes.
So all we need is an aggregation point, and then the delivery hubs, which City of Sydney had ran an experiment around this a couple of years ago, and it worked really well. I think they ran it like on the basement of a parking lot or something really interesting like that. And it worked so well, and that is going to be one of the experiments. So we're going to test it out, and we're planning to do our first deliveries around September, which is amazing. But
this is using this new model with the hubs and everything.
Exactly. So there's a lot of work to be done before then, because there's so much work to be done with farmers, produce, profiles, website, everything. But it's like the biggest wave of growth to date, and it's really, really exciting.
Why do you think there's a big wave of growth? Because in all honesty, right, I can go to the supermarket.
Very good question. So there is nowhere, to my knowledge, still that will let you have your favorite whole foods on repeat without doing anything direct from farm.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
So again, the whole goal is to remove the mental load.
Yes.
And to my knowledge, it still takes so much like in fact, I can still remember before I became a supermarket dropout and stopped going to the supermarket, the awful sensation I'd have come over my body when I was like, supermarket time again, rock up to the supermarket, find a spot, get a trolley, go in, find stuff that looks totally uninspiring, put it through the checkout, and then I'd have to pay for it and lug it to my boot. And it was like there was nothing about that process that excites me at all. And I loved going to the farmer's market, but it was so inefficient. And I didn't always need a lot of produce. Sometimes it's just staples.
Yeah.
So I was like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be something more efficient for soccer mums and dads out there who have to spend their whole weekends doing kids like sports and whatever birthday parties they've got on. They don't also need the mental load of going to the supermarket and then also figuring out what to do for dinner every single night.
Are you like a fly on my wall or something? Like seriously, and then you get to Sunday night at 6:00 and the kids go, "There's nothing in the cupboard for me to make my school lunches tomorrow. Could you please go to the supermarket?" It's like, oh, you're kidding.
Oh no!
It's like when you're talking about this, it's like, oh, you're describing me
Oh
to a
dear.
T. And I love the term you use, supermarket dropout.
Literally,
Yeah, so
that's literally what I've become, I've realized.
Oh, yeah, I totally get it. Because you could also order stuff online from the supermarket.
Yes.
But that still is not your thing.
Every time, so the quality is always the biggest thing for me.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Biggest thing. So I know now that I've spoken to enough farmers that most of the apples, for example, will sit in the cold room for about a year before they get to your
A year?
plate. A year.
Oh, yeah. My God. Okay. So they're not picked, lovely off the tree from the orchard.
No, that's a very small percentage, and only a very happy farmer will be selling that to you. But generally speaking, it explains why people are like, I just bought this yesterday. I cut into this apple, for instance, and it's nice and coloured and bright and shiny on the outside. And it's like brown on the inside. What is it?
Or tasteless.
Tasteless. The wax keeps it lovely and preserved on the outside so that it's not their problem when you go home and cut it open. It's not like you're going to go take the apple back. You just deal with it. It's not worth your time.
Yeah.
And so ordering online, the biggest issues that I've heard from people so far have been they can't trust somebody to pick their produce for them.
Yeah, agree.
And that the ordering quantity can be quite deceptive as well. So that, some people have ordered like 4 kilograms of, I don't know, chili when they meant to order 200 grams or whatever other error we might have done. And it's not user error. Do not blame yourself. You.
Yep. Again, you've been in my world. Yep.
So I have a question for you, actually.
Yeah.
What's your death row meal?
Sushi.
Oh.
Sushi, absolutely.
Give me more.
Sushi, fresh sushi and sashimi with raw salmon and avocado.
Oh.
That is, and it's funny, my son he didn't call it a death row meal. He only said to me last night, because we ask questions all the time, what is your favorite meal that you could eat every day or every night for the rest of your life? And I'm like, it's easy. Like, to me, it's sushi. Yeah. Tell me why.
So good, because I feel that it is a fantastic gateway to understand a person when you're just meeting them. I mean, obviously you're not going to be like, hey, how are you? My name is Angela or my name is Kim. This is my death row meal. What's yours? But on the way to getting to know someone, it's a fantastic question to ask. So my next question to you is I have to ask, why sushi?
So it's interesting you asked that, actually. When I was growing up, my parents split and my dad ended up marrying a Japanese lady.
Oh, wow.
So I grew up with a Japanese stepmother. And this is at a time, like I was born in the 70s. This is at a time when Japanese restaurants weren't popular like they are today. And I'd go down to my dad's on the weekend and she would make us sandwiches for lunch and rice balls. And rice balls are just like the hand roll, the sushi hand roll, but instead of being in a long tube, they're in a ball. And so I grew up eating rice balls for lunch most of my teenage life. And I loved it, the seaweed, I loved the rice, I loved the soy, I loved all the flavors. And so sushi's kind of always been, and I trace it back to that moment, or that
Wow.
time in my life growing up. Yeah.
It
Tell me
takes you
why
back
though. You've
there.
asked me that for a reason. Yeah.
Yeah, it sort of reinforces this desire we have for nostalgia or to connect to a certain point in our lives.
Ah,
And
interesting.
so, for example, I can think of so many friends when they tell me what their favorite foods are. It often connects them back to a time that is really precious to them.
Oh,
And
how
so the
interesting.
taste, yeah, it will be completely different for everyone, but it will always be, it's rarely ever going to be like, Domino's pizza, unless it was connected to something really nostalgic, something relational. And
Yeah.
it often is a relationship driven food, something that you could connect with somebody over. I just love understanding why.
Ah, and
Yeah, look, I
and
found out
probably
you had,
now, yeah, it's not so much my stepmother, but it was my dad and his wife had two daughters who are my half sisters, and we're really close. And they're half
oh,
Japanese, and like they cook Japanese food like it's just spectacular. So for me, it's like sushi's kind of like my family. Oh my
oh,
gosh, oh my gosh. So what's yours? What's your death row meal?
okay. So this is going to sound hilarious. Mine is the best sourdough, just been made, fresh, like, or maybe left a little bit, still a little bit warm,
Oh,
crusty, with fantastic butter, cultured butter, a little bit sour, and then some olive oil, maybe some like
yes.
freshly pressed olive oil, little peppery. And then after that course, I know this is going to sound so funny, I'd probably go straight for fried chicken. Very strange.
No, because when I asked why you're a fussy eater and what would you eat, you said fried chicken or chicken tenders. Like it's
Was
still
those chicken tenders.
yeah,
There
it's
you
still
go. This is like
chicken and breadcrumbs, right?
I'm redefining what that chicken is
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. I'm gathering from this conversation it wouldn't be like the chicken tenders you buy now, just in Aldi at the frozen section. And so tell me why that for you? Why the fried chicken and why the sourdough?
So I've always, it's funny you say that because I've always loved bread and I've always loved chicken.
Yeah, yeah, because when you're a basic eater, they're two
Exactly.
staples, right? Bread and chicken.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I
It's
love
so
it.
funny. I think to some extent our favorites are always going to be our favorites and they'll just
Yeah.
change in form or something over time, but you'll never stop loving them.
No, and it's funny because I run a lot of workshops and usually with professionals. And one of the questions I always ask them random questions. I don't so much care about there's no right or wrong. What I love is the answer normally gives so much insight into them. So for example, one of the questions I love is if they were making a movie of your life, which actor or actress would play you?
Oh, so good.
And there's no right or wrong answer, but when someone tells you who that person would be, I love why they've chosen that person and you can learn so much. So you've just given me another question that I can ask when I run my workshops.
Oh, I love that. You're going to get some serious nitty gritty there. You'll love it.
Oh, I love. Oh, that is just superb. Oh my gosh. Now, I'm aware that we've been going for 58 minutes, and I told you I can't get these into 30 because there's way too much. Angela, I need to have you back. I need to know more. Tell me then, what is the next thing that you've got to do? And maybe you have already answered that given what you've just shared. But what is the next thing you've got to reach in and find some courage for?
I think it is connected to what we talked about,
Yeah.
which is the next wave of this business. But I remember someone expressed it really well recently, which was every stage of your business requires a different sense of growth in you,
Yes.
and you can't be the same person that you were at version 1 of your business or version 2.
Yeah.
And you have to have self-awareness and you have to face your blind spots or find them,
Yes.
and you're never going to find all of them, but you have to be on the hunt for them and be able to face them. And so I'm
Mm.
always asking people really uncomfortable questions like, what did I miss, or do you think there's something that I could have done better? Obviously everything with a pinch of salt and
Yes.
trusting your gut,
Yes.
but being able to face the blind spots and having the courage to act despite uncertainty of
Yeah.
the future is probably going to be the next part that I'll have to dig in for.
Oh, that is beautiful. And I love again. And do you think you mentioned that church was a big influence for you growing up?
Yes.
Do you think that learning and the ability to go inside has allowed you to find the courage to move forward, to experiment, and to look at failure as what has it taught me? What can I then move forward on? Do you think that's had an influence?
Oh, that's such a good question, Kim. I've never had that one before.
Ah,
It actually did.
yeah.
My relationship with the church is very, very different now,
Yes.
but it taught me to meditate, not in
Yes.
quite the conventional way that you and I have
Yes.
seen all over the media,
Yes.
but be able to have a quiet moment
Yeah.
and really understand what it is you're needing
Yeah.
or what you need to give to others.
Yep.
So having that background of stopping everything else
Yeah.
and being honestly, that was like years of that,
Yeah.
stopping everything else and dedicating yourself to one thing entirely mentally.
Yes.
That was actually really incredible to grow up with, and that's
Yeah.
probably a huge reason why I wouldn't change anything about my past.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I have to, is your father still alive?
He is, yes.
Yes. What does he think of you doing this business? Because this is not electrical engineering or electronics or anything.
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I don't think he knows.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, okay. Yeah. Right. So I was going to say, does he approve? Not that it matters because you're not the good girl anymore. I mean, you're a good girl, but you're your own version of a good girl. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, we must keep in touch, and you must tell me if ever he does find out what his views are, because you certainly
exactly.
didn't go into his business and his line of work, which is good for all of those people out there that are getting to enjoy what you're bringing to the table off your passion for food and what you've been able to do, especially for anyone who still is a fussy eater, to change that script of what it could look like. And through, what do you call it? Ideas, not recipes. I love that idea. I love that
Yes.
concept that it's an idea, not a recipe, and that a recipe is just how we find courage. Sorry,
Exactly.
confidence. Confidence. Oh my God, that's
Confidence.
so beautiful.
Absolutely.
So, Angela, you mentioned that this new version, like 2.0, 3.0, whatever, of your business. If people want to find out a bit more, where should I send them? We'll put the details in the show notes, but where should we send them off to find a bit more information?
Spread.co. Very easy.
Spread.co. Yep. And
Yep.
is that just in a certain area of Australia, or is it going to be all around, or?
We'll start with Sydney and then we'll see how things go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Because again, if it's coming from the farm, that's not something AI can do, right?
exactly right. Exactly right.
Right. So if you're in Sydney, spread.co, and for anyone else who's just interested in following along, we'll put all your details in the show notes. But Angela, thank you so much. I'm going to go and get some, well, I don't have sourdough, but I'm going to get some some lunch, because you've certainly whet my taste buds. They're all firing up now. Absolutely love your take on courage. I love how you talked about courage as a feeling and the different feels that it brings up. I think that's a beautiful take, and you are one courageous woman. And here's to spread.co and whatever that looks like as you and it evolves. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much, Kim. It was so lovely chatting to you.
Thank you.